Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here for our next episode of Recognize and Manage Your Level of Crazy with EQ. And today we have an amazing conversation for you all. Today we're going to be talking about the Bahai Faith and world religions, and why and how that can be an amazing facilitation for improving one's EQ. All right. So emotional intelligence, as we know it, self-awareness and self-management. And as I coined it, recognizing and managing your level of crazy. Okay. So excited. We have some amazing guests with us tonight. And I'm going to introduce them briefly, and then they're going to give you just a little bit more maybe about who they are and what makes them so amazing. Okay, so first we have, and just raise your hands as I call on you. Okay, so we have Sam, we have Heather, and we have Rabbi Mordechai. I don't want to mispronounce your last names. So if you guys, when you introduce yourselves, just mention your last names at the same time. And we have Tom, my wingman. All right. So let's get into this. And it's going to be an amazing conversation. So you definitely want to stay tuned and join us. So firstly, let's get right into it. I don't like to waste a lot of time. So let's get into it and talk about what is the Bahai Faith, right? Like, what is the Bahai Faith from a basic, fundamental understanding? And I want to hear from, obviously Heather and Sam, who are members of this beautiful faith. And I know that the rabbi has some opinions about it. And Tom and I are new to the faith, so we don't have a lot to say, but we will give our 2 cents, I'm sure. So Heather and Sam, and I'm going to ask, let's ask Sam to go first. Sam's going to go first. And Sam, make sure that you tell us your first and last name. And then I just want to say that Sam is actually, this is a very interesting piece of information about Sam, is that he is a semi-retired, you can tell by the way he's sitting chill like that, he's semi-retired mechanical engineer. And I've been privileged to see his work in the making, because they have a beautiful home. And he either designed it or remade it. He can tell you which one it is, but he is amazing at what he does. And he's, like I said, he's a member of the Bahai Faith. So Sam, tell us your last name, and then tell us what you know about the Bahai Faith in about a minute or two. Oh, your sound.
Hello, everyone. Because I'm sitting right next to Heather, so I'm going to speak up a little bit more. And
Perfect.
Heather, so you guys can hear me. Hello, Sam Hosseini. And as far as to start with the Bahai Faith and where it started in Iran about 200 years ago, approximately. It's a world religion. It has about 8 million followers, and 95% of the Baha'is of the world are non-Iranian, and only 5% may be Iranian, even less. It's a world embracing, and its fundamental teachings is about independent investigation of the truth, oneness of humanity, oneness of God, oneness of religion. And if I could summarize that in one word or one phrase, would be progressive revelation. We believe it's the promise that Abraham made to God. God made the promise to Abraham that he will not leave the children of man alone, and he will continue to guide humanity and to protect humanity for its spiritual salvation. And therefore, throughout the histories, he has sent messengers and guides to guide humanity into the path of, to the spiritual path of spiritual development. And Bahai Faith basically is in that progressive revelation, is in the series of religions that have come in an effort to educate mankind, the spiritual education, into developing as a consciousness and awareness for us to understand the purpose of life, our purpose in life, in the physical life, and how we could develop our soul and our consciousness. And a part of it, it means you take an active role in your life, in the decisions you make, in your actions, in your behavior, in every way, and trying to reach your higher self. The higher self as far as, your virtues, your righteousness, and in the good qualities, the spiritual qualities of love, kindness, friendliness, gratitude, accountability, responsibility, and so on, and infinite. That's
amazing. It sounds like a beautiful faith, and what's not to love, right? Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Heather, I want you to, so now we got everybody's last names out, thank goodness. And except Rabbi Schreiber, I think I got that right. Okay, great. So Heather, without duplicating what Sam said, what more can you add about the Baha'i Faith in your understanding?
Well, Sam gave a very good kind of general picture about the teachings of the Baha'i Faith. And I just, perhaps because it's about emotional intelligence and growing a stronger EQ, I can talk about what the Baha'i Faith does for me, make it more personalized. The essence of all religion comes from the root word religio, which means to bind and unite. The purpose of religion has always been for love, which is that magnetic force that connects all of us, human beings all across the world, and the love that exists between, our love for the Creator and the Creator's love for us. And out of his or her love, because in the Baha'i writings, we have no gender assigned to God, he provides these dynamic luminaries in Abraham and Moses and Jesus and Buddha, Christ and Muhammad, and Abab and Baha'u'llah, that guides humanity at different times according to the needs of the time and the capacity of the people. So it kind of, as a Baha'i, I'm a Jew, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, and I'm not confused. To me, that is the most important thing in terms of my relationship with this unknowable essence that we call God. So it kind of, the Baha'i Faith's, what governs and kind of centers all Baha'is is not, we don't have a physical leadership, because in the Baha'i Faith, we have no clergy, no rabbi, no mullah, no minister, but we are encouraged to independently investigate the Word of God. So I read from the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the Baha'i writings to guide me. It's the Word of God which vivifies my soul. So as Baha'is, we are encouraged to read writings, holy writings, every morning and every night. This kind of centers me, centers my GPS. Because, for example, Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, says the reality of man is his thoughts, not his material body. Just to know, Baha'u'llah says, for example, in the hidden words, he says, "O son of spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting." So that is my mandate as a human being. Like Sam says, I have to develop these spiritual qualities, because the next world, the Baha'is believe in a reality It's not a physical reality, it's spiritual reality. The worlds of God is a world of radiance. So we need to develop these qualities of light within us. So prayers like, oh God, guide me, protect me, illumine the lamp of my heart, and make me a brilliant star. Thou art the mighty and the powerful. This centers me so I know what my internal GPS calls me to be a higher being, to know my nobility, and to be a guide, a loving person in my work, in my family, to be generous in prosperity, thankful in adversity, strive that my actions may day by day become beautiful prayers. So these writings and these words are like the elixir which can change a very simple physical person into knowing its highest EQ or emotional intelligence.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love how you did that, because my initial question was, how has this helped with your emotional intelligence on a personal level? So I'm glad that you brought that up. And I'm going to circle back to Sam in a minute. But first, I want to talk to Rabbi. And unfortunately, his camera is not working. So that's okay. But I've seen his picture, and he says that he's a real person and he's really there. And so we're going to trust that. And Heather and Sam have met him, so they can confirm that he's a real person. So Rabbi, tell us, oh, and one thing I wanted to mention is that Heather is an amazing dentist. She is a dentist, and you know, she has an amazing practice in Weston, and so we are very, very proud to know that she can help make our teeth wonderful, which is also good for your EQ. All right, so Rabbi, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I want to start by saying that Hoda and Sam are very dear friends of mine, and I fell in love with them and their group that assembles at their beautiful home. And what's wonderful about this group, that it's a cross-section of the entire human race. There's no such thing as Muslim, Christian, Jewish, black, white. It's everybody participates. And I had the great good fortune that I grew up right outside one of the most famous places of the Bahai Faith, which is in my native town of Haifa in Israel, at Mount Carmel. My home was a short walk from the Bahai Gardens, the temple with a golden dome overlooking the beautiful city of Haifa and the Mediterranean. I visited there many times, and there was born my love for their beautiful tropical plants, especially the cacti collection. And now that I live on the ocean in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on my 15th floor overlooking the ocean, I have a robust garden, mostly of big cacti plants overlooking the ocean, which lifts my spirits every day when I get up in the morning. So Haifa, Bahai, have had an impact on my life early on, very early. And yet, in those early days, we didn't know much about the Bahai, because we, the children of pioneers who left the future hell of Europe, of Nazi Europe, realized, thank God I wouldn't be here talking to you otherwise, that there is no hope, no future for the Jews in Europe. We know what happened. And so, thank God, my parents, each by himself and herself, had the wisdom in 1931 to leave Poland and found their way to the old land of Israel - Palestine, as the British called it, to become new Jews, to reclaim the ancestral home, to do what no other people in the history of the world has ever done. The Irish tried, but it didn't work. They wanted to revive their old language, but English was so dominant as it dominates the world. But we revived the Hebrew language, the language of the Old Testament, the language of Moses and Abraham and Jeremiah and so on.
So, Rabbi, I
Yeah.
want to ask you, because you're actually moving into a very good part here. And as you're moving into that, before you continue, I want to introduce you a little bit. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of reading about your bio, but what I did get is that you're an American Reformed rabbi, and you authored about 60 books, which is no small feat. I am actually writing my first book, and it is quite the task.
Yeah, I know, it's very difficult, very difficult.
So
Yes.
I think once you write your first one, I'm hoping it gets easier.
Yeah.
So I like where you're going with this, and I want to ask you, what is the difference between Judaism and what you know about the Bahai Faith?
Yeah, before I go there, I just wanted to mention to you that I have the highest admiration and respect for this new social science of emotional intelligence. I think it's long overdue. I think we humans throughout history have neglected our emotional side and been too focused on the brain, on cognitive, rational thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, now that I look back on human history and my studies of philosophy throughout time and history and religions, it's clear to me that we made a very big mistake, not focusing on emotional intelligence earlier on. We are now paying the price, because the biggest problem in the world today is we have world leaders who are very lacking in emotional intelligence, and that is tearing us apart. So I want to applaud your work and give you my blessing, because I think what you're doing is extremely important. And now you asked me about the Baha'i vis-a-vis Judaism, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And thank you. And thank you for saying that. And thank you. I appreciate it. And I think you're 100% right. And hopefully we will continue the work of EQ, and it'll become more and more and more, important and popular. And thank God I've seen a big increase. So thank you for saying that. And yeah. So, okay. So yes, I'd like to know from your perspective, Judaism versus Baha'i. What is the difference? What are the similarities? What are the differences? What is the biggest, I would say, one or two things, like two similarities and two differences.
Yeah. Judaism started out in what is now the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, or before that. And eventually Muslims came in from neighboring countries. We call them now Palestinians, which is a misnomer, because Philistines were Greek pagans of the Greek islands. And under British control, they named it Palestine, nothing to do with the Arab world. So they are the Palestine by misnaming. But anyway, I grew up with Arabs and Jews, because Haifa was half Arab, half Jewish. Many of these Arabs now live in the Gaza Strip, and my heart goes out to them, because they have terrible leadership that's been destroying them and trying to destroy Israel. And that's not going to happen, because Israel is indestructible. That's my belief and my experience. So that's Baha'i and Judaism have a lot in common. Judaism originally started, like most religions of antiquity, as a territorial religion. Religion was territorial, confined to a certain country. The Jews did not invent monotheism. It came from India, Persia. But the Jews are the one who not caused, but were the reason that monotheism, belief in the one God of the universe, in the unity of world religions, was the true way. And because of that, we saw the birth of Christianity out of a Jew named Jesus. And later on, the birth of Islam out of a member of a tribe in the Arabian Peninsula named Muhammad. So these three religions are the three major monotheistic religions of the world, with Islam and Christianity being hundreds of millions. Judaism is about the size of the Bahai religion. We also have a few millions in the world, just like the Bahai. And frankly, when I was growing up as a child in Israel, we didn't know much about it. They didn't teach us about the Bahai. I had to pick it up on my own. And it's only when I got to know Hoda and Sam that I got the full flavor of Bahai and its importance. And so in my writings, in my book, I talk about my latest book. I have a chapter about the Bahai. The name of this book is Israel Forever, a Jewish Odyssey. And in this book, which just came out on Amazon a couple of months ago, I tried to show the world that all religions are one, what I've learned from the Bahai. And I think they're 100% right. And I'll give you an example. In my last 15 years of retirement, when I retired from being a full-time rabbi, I had the great good fortune of being a cruise clergy on one of the best cruise lines in the world. And I visited practically every country on the planet. And in one of my travels, I got to the island of Bali in Indonesia. And I went to a performance by Hinduist people from India. There's one island in Bahai, there's a large Hindu population. The rest of Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country in the world, by far, over 200 million Muslims. So they did their dance and their ritual, of Hinduism. And afterward, I asked them, I said, you believe in all these different deities, all these different gods. Do you believe God is one or God is many? And they gave me a very interesting answer, which I didn't expect. They said to me, we believe that there is one God, period. All of these different deities, Shinto, all these different names that they have, they are manifestation of the one God, which is what Catholicism says, by the way. The Trinity is really one God, and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are three manifestations of one God. So the Christians call themselves monotheists, but they have the Trinity. The Hindus have all these deities, but they surprised me when they told me they believe in one God. So I began to realize that the idea of a one God is not confined to Judaism or to Bahai or to whoever. It is pretty much accepted around the world, except it's not practiced. The great tragedy to me of the human race is that we are territorial. We are not universalistic. We do not see ourselves as one human race, as which we are. I mean, the color of your skin is pure nonsense. We humans invented black, white, yellow, green, right? That's pure nonsense. And we relish in this nonsense. Why? Because we are separatists. We are provincial. We are not universal. And so I came to full understanding of Bahai thanks to these two wonderful persons we have on the screen. They introduced me to the group here in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida. It made me realize that I'm really a Bahai. Yeah, of course I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. I'm more Jew, I think, than the Hasidic Jews who think they have God by the tail. No, I'm sorry. They are very parochial. Parochialism is not the destiny of the human race as far as I'm concerned. The destiny of the human race, one of these days we'll finally wake up and realize that we live on a small planet that's very vulnerable. We're one human species, and either we get together like what's his name said during the American Revolution, Ben Franklin. Either we hang together or we're all going to hang separately. If we don't hang together, we have no future. Hence, my admiration for Bahai grew immensely in recent years in my retirement. And this is thanks to Hoda and Sam, very unusual human beings, the likes of which you don't meet every day. And thank God there are people like them. But you know what happens? When you have certain truth, you are in a minority. the vast majority of people in the world adhere to eat and drink and have and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Then they talk about the next life, but it's all talk, it's not reality. So you meet people who understand the nature of humanity. It's like a blessing from heaven. It's
wonderful.
it's an incredible experience.
Yeah. So
And it
what I'm
enhanced my own Judaism. Yeah.
yeah. So so thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I just want to reiterate, just for the viewers. So mainly the main common thread here is that I'm hearing is that we are one. And I think that all religions can agree to that. It's just that we don't always practice that. And that is one of the main differences, I think, with Baha'i versus all religions. But in this case, we're going to talk about Judaism, is that we have a separatist mentality, whereas Baha'i tries not to create that separatist mentality. They want to create unity, and they want to move forward with all religions as one progression, over time. So it's amazing. It's amazing. So thank you, Rabbi. And I'm gonna come back to you in a few minutes here about more stuff. So Tom, would love to hear from you. And I'd like to know from your perspective. Me and you have a very new perspective on Baha'i, right? We just got exposed to this because we've been on a journey recently where we've been going around, checking out churches and Quakerism and Messianic Jews. And then we stumbled upon the Baha'is, not even knowing how that happened. But it happened, and then we ended up connecting with Heather and Sam, and it's been an amazing experience, and it will continue. So tell us what you feel the Baha'i faith so far has done for your EQ.
Well, thanks, Esther. First, again, I want to acknowledge you again for this pursuit of EQ. I met you in the very beginning, and you were very passionate about getting the word out about what is EQ and emotional intelligence, EI. And it was like a new revelation for me that was a conversation. It seemed like it should always have been a conversation, but nobody seems to point it out, just as Rabbi mentioned, and I'm glad he acknowledged that. So your passion and your desire to communicate and help people understand their own emotions so they can move forward in life is a very amazing thing. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. I'm an acupuncturist, an occupational therapist, and Esther and I met in the process of being in this practice. So she brings such a valuable tool to patients who are trying to heal and recover from an illness. And that emotional support makes an enormous difference in their progress and their ability to manage that process and that journey. And on that note, Esther, I noticed Esther and I have this mutual passion for searching for truth. What is truth in the world? And so we've constantly been nudging each other along, encouraging each other to explore these different pathways, to not just sit back and accept the world as it is, but to be on this journey to try to find a way to understand why we're really here. What are we really supposed to be doing? Because it looks a little maddening with the world repeating mistakes over and over again, continuing to have the same problems, continue to have animosities when we are spiritual beings, and we need to find our way to express that and to find a way to unify that. So as Esther found the Baha'i faith, it was quite shocking to me that this wasn't available to most people. At least it just seemed a surprise, again, just like EQ, that we're not having the conversation that Baha'i is having, And at one of the events we went to, I took a picture of something that says Baha'is is belief in, and they list a series of things. The first one is one God, and the second one is oneness of humanity. which, as as the rabbi was saying, the color of the skin, the color of your eyes, your race, your national, doesn't matter. We're all human beings, we're all spiritual beings in a human form, on this planet together. And this planet is one spaceship, so to speak, flying through space. But yet we don't see it that way. We have these regional divisions. We have countries. We have, races. We have religions and wars over these things. So it always, I think it always never made sense to me why the world is the way it is. The third thing that it says is individual search for truth. And that hit home for me. If Baha'i belief is that we're allowed to search and question and look for, I think that seeking is what really is like lightens up my heart. It like lets me feel like I'm not forced to believe something. I can still seek the one God and not be judged for doing that, not be ridiculed or not be ostracized because I don't follow the mass mentality. But then there's other things I don't quite understand. That I know that they talk about a universal auxiliary language. I like the concept of spiritual economic solutions. There's so much for us to learn. I like the common foundation of all religions. To me, is spectacular. It helps me understand the history of our religions and their evolution in a different way that I'd never got a chance to look at before. So I'm exploring this, and I really like what I'm seeing. The other thing, harmony of science and religion. I mean, what an amazing thing to be speaking about when usually those things are considered mutually exclusive. And I never believed that they were either. I thought that those things would come together. The equality of women and men. That seems like not a big deal in modern times, but knowing that this came out when it did, that's pretty amazing back in 200 years ago, because the planet was not a place where this was an easy statement to make. And you could see why, unfortunately, they were persecuted so badly. I don't know, that's just a thing that's very sad and upsetting. Elimination of all prejudice, universal education, and universal peace. I mean, these are principles, these are principles that I don't think anybody can argue with. I think most religions would have some or some of these principles in them, but to bring it all together like this, it's exciting to explore this. And again, being so new, I'm just sharing my initial feelings and looking at, how I feel about what's being said. And I'm looking forward to exploring more.
Nice. Thank you for that. That was awesome. I have to say that in my pursuit of all this, and as I'm learning more and more about Baha'i and seeing a lot of parallels with different religions, but it's good to see that a lot of these things are progressing together. Like, for example, like there's essence of this in Judaism, there's essence of this in Christianity, there's essence of this in Islam, right? There's essence of this in Krishna and Buddha and all these things. So it's amazing to see that a lot of this stuff is continuing on. And and it just feels like we just need to like finally take the good stuff, right? Take the good stuff and just hold on to the good stuff. So I want to go back to Sam for a second. And I want to ask you, Sam, so how do you feel like the Baha'i faith, or any spirituality for their matter, would help somebody with their EQ from your own personal, like how has it helped you, basically? Sorry. Your sound.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
As we reflect on life, when I realized, when I was throughout my teenage years and everything, I was mostly like more into science and technology and did not care much about the spirituality and God and understanding of that and personal development, until I later on in life, I realized I started feeling like that I'm developing. I kind of saw my own evolution of how I could understand certain concepts. For example, when I started being separated from my family because of the circumstances of what happened in Iran and the Baha'is being persecuted in Iran and the separation, and then the greater appreciate that distance and has created it gave me like another sense of appreciation and missing them, and the love that I had for my family and for my grandfather, for my father, for my mother, grandmother, and everything. And then start you realizing that in life, you're really as a person, as a human being, you're navigating two realities. One is a physical reality and one is a spiritual reality. And these two realities, we're constantly, we're in these two and dealing with both realities at the same time, all the time. To give it a little bit of an example, for example, you have no choices on your physical needs as far as eating, sleeping, and breathing air, and you have no choice. You have no control. But however, when it comes to your inner reality, where it's your spiritual reality, where love, kindness, friendliness, gratitude, and those things is that actually, you start seeing in yourself that you're capable and you're developing capacities to show that toward other human beings. And my first experience started with that when I was separated from my family and I didn't see them for a long time, and how I was yearning to see them and the love that I have in my heart for them. And then how as I grew up and I got older, how that love, that circle got bigger, and that love was for my friends, for people that were around me, and I was looking at them as like my family. So the love extended beyond just my own family and went to my friends. So basically I started realizing that I said, so what is this inside of me growing that gives me more capacity to be a kinder person, wanting to be a more loving person, a kinder person? And actually, when I became a father and became a husband, and then I experienced love in another level, and that was like, wow. So it's like I started realizing, I'm developing my inner self, my inner being, my soul. And the physical experiences of this world is like a food for my soul that develops the capacities of my soul and to understand myself. And it gives me, then I started reflecting on that. That's probably is the purpose of life, is to develop your soul, to develop your capacities that is within you, because that's what ultimately makes a man's reality. A human reality is his thoughts, as Heather said. And our thoughts are not something that is tangible. I know a lot of people, perhaps they want to see God with their own eyes or hear his voice with their own ears. And they want it like in a physical space and time experience, where actually it's transcends space and time. And it's not that, and it's something as feeling and the emotions and the things that is within us, the capacities of love, truthfulness, trustworthiness, kindness, friends, and on that we've been speaking of, that also known as virtues and righteousness. So that's, just to summarize it, it's once you realize that you're a spiritual being, you're navigating these two realities at the same time, then you develop the consciousness and the awareness that, wow, I'm in charge of developing my soul. Means that I really, in order for me to develop an authentic qualities of friendliness and kindness or love, I really need to be sincere and pure in my intentions and in my actions toward my fellow human being, whether it's my son, my wife, my daughter, my brother, or my friend, or my neighbor, or my coworker, and it just extends. And I'm not saying that people are perfect. I'm not perfect. I definitely made mistakes in the past in my life, and that's kind of like trial and error. But the fact is that you be aware of it and be conscious and measure yourself every day, and not to compare yourself to others, but compare yourself to your yesterday. Am I a better person today than I was yesterday? Am I a kinder person today than I was yesterday? Am I a more patient person today than I was yesterday? And I see that as like we all struggle. I struggle with it. Not that I'm saying that I'm walking on water and I know every day I fail. I lose my patience. I get mad. I get angry. I get frustrated too, just like everybody else. But immediately I bring myself to account, and not I don't bring myself account to other people, but to myself. And saying, you know, what, as a spiritual being, how am I developing myself? How am I doing? Am I doing better today or not? Am I going backward? I'm going forward. And as I know, as I'm getting older and older, I see how I'm physically disintegrating, and like my knees hurting, my back is hurting, I'll have to wear glasses pretty soon, probably my ears, I probably won't have a good hearing, and digestion won't be as good. So start realizing you're physically disintegrating, but one thing you're realizing, but you're developing these higher capacities in your higher self, as far as love, kindness, friendliness, trust, accountability, responsibility, patience, and there are infinite qualities that a human being develops. So that makes it obvious that that's a spiritual growth within the inner self of a person, which is directly represent itself as our emotional quotient, or that how it affects our behavior and how we interact with other people.
I would like to reinforce what Sam just said, if I may, for a couple of minutes. Okay.
Yes, just one quick moment, if you wouldn't mind, Rabbi, just 1 minute, because we have to continue.
I know. I just take a couple of minutes. I'm going to share an experience I had today.
Okay.
My wife, sadly, is in rehab at the Sinai residences in Boca because she has a disability of lung disease, that she has a ventilator. She lives with an oxygen machine. And they gave her some strong, anxiety medication that messed up her cognitive ability. And they put it in this rehab, wonderful institution in Boca, run by the Jewish Federation of Boca. I went over there today to visit her. And I realized, like Sam just said, we grow through experience, in this case, suffering. Living now in this big apartment in Fort Lauderdale by myself, where she is in Boca. And I called her after I visited her, and I said to her, I learned a new life lesson today. I learned that life without you is not life. And I can't wait to have you back home, because I feel I'm only half a person. So that's in keeping with what Sam just said. We go through life. I'm 84 years old. You would think I've learned everything by now. No, you learn every day that you're still alive, new lessons. And Sam is 100% right. The lesson I learned today was probably the greatest lesson of my entire life.
Thank you, Rabbi. And I'm sorry to hear that. It's interesting what Sam was saying. And actually, I'm going to copy Tom's quote, which is, we learn by doing. That is one of Tom's famous quotes. And it actually teaches us about we learn by doing. So every day we stumble. And every day when I learned, my studies in Kabbalah have taught me that, and Kabbalah, for those people that don't know what that is the Jewish mysticism, but I see it as so much more than that. But it's really a manual for life, and it's very powerful. And so in Kabbalah, we learn that you have to react. You have to react because you're human. And without reacting, you can't be proactive. So sure, you will, you'll lessen the reactivity as you go, because the muscles will get developed, right? And as I call it, the level of crazy, you will learn how to recognize it faster, and you'll be able to manage it faster, but you'll still react. So not to beat yourself up, Sam, because it's normal. And I agree with you 100% what you said about how am I better today than I was yesterday? And I have that conversation with myself all the time, because I always say, okay, I'm still 80% crazy, but I'm getting better, so I'm with you. Okay, so before I want to ask you guys one more question, and then we're going to do one more round table, because there's so many amazing things you guys are saying, and I wanted to be done with this in 30 minutes, but I don't see that's going to happen. And if you guys are okay with it, can we keep going just for one more question? Yes? Okay, good. Rabbi, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but before I do that, I do want to say, I have to do a little plug here, just because I want to honor that this channel and everything that I do with my work is sponsored and gives me the ability to do this work is by Florida Balance Centers, which is our business here and what we do to help people with vertigo, balance, and dizziness issues. We also help people with acupuncture, and we take a very holistic approach. So we do functional movement, nutrition, acupuncture, and emotional health. And so we really want to honor that we are able to do this work because of Florida Balance Centers and acupuncture integrative medicine. And I want to honor Tom for being in this work for 30 plus years and being so dedicated to this work. He was the founder of this concept of Florida Balance Centers. And he's an amazing one. And I'm not just saying that because he's my partner, but because he's really an incredible soul. And I'm honored. I'm honored to be with him. So thank you so much. So, and finally, just a reminder, please like, share, subscribe to the channel so you guys can support us if you like to. If you like this content and you want to hear more, please do those things for us. We'd really appreciate it. Okay. So my final question to you guys is, and then we'll circle back with final thoughts, is why if we're talking about such great things about spirituality and the Bahai Faith and Judaism, Kabbalah is so amazing, and we have all these amazing tools, why are more people not doing this? So who wants to start with that question? Who wants to just raise your hand and I'll call on you? Go ahead, Heather. Take it away.
This is just a personal perspective, and I'm going to go from Rumi, the famous Persian poet. He says, "Don't search for water, search for thirst, and water will burst out of the dry ground." The first requirement is to develop the hunger or the thirst for spirituality. And in the Baha'i writings, it says the only way to develop that is to center your thoughts on spiritual matters on a daily basis. And that's why prayers, devotionals, all these things matter a lot, especially in a world that's become so much more technological. Before people would just, go to the churches or places of worship and then have their questions answered, deep questions. What do people do now? They Google it or they go chat GPT for the answers. See, they're trying to find God in technology, but we know that can only take you so much. So one of the things I just wanted to share in the vein of developing thirst is in the Baha'i writing, it says that it says that more we search for ourselves, and people are always just searching for themselves, not necessarily not just for spiritual things, but for their paths, for their direction, for where they're going. And a lot of people don't. They're just on this Niagara syndrome. They're just happily marrying along until the waterfalls comes and they're drowning, and they are not prepared. So in the Baha'i writing, it says the more we search for ourselves, the less likely we are to find ourselves. And the more we search for God, and here's the key, and to serve our fellow man, the more profoundly we will become acquainted with ourselves, and the more inwardly assured. This is one of the great spiritual laws of life. See, to me, if the purpose of life is to develop spiritual qualities, like Sam had shared earlier, can we do that alone? Can I just sit in a room and I just, or to work on truthfulness, or work on kindness, or work on truthfulness? I can't do it unless I'm in connection with other people. And this is the work of a Baha'i. To be a Baha'i simply means to love all the world, to love humanity and to try to serve it, to work for universal peace and universal brotherhood. The work of bridging the racial divide, which is so separate, so unequal, so hostile. There would be two Americas, one white, one black. The work of a Baha'i in this country, to me, is to do my part to make so that people realize how we are all one. We all come from one root of humanity. We're all African. His science and all the branches of science prove that there's only one root of humanity. So to me, in order to find myself, to grow, it's in proximity with others, with people that don't look like me, with people that have different religion, people have different way of life, people have no religion. It's this constant need to connect with the members of the human family. This is what is the antidote to separation, to which I think disunity is death. Unity is closeness and love, which is the one most important thing that keeps all this Milky Way, this galaxy in perfect order, is this law of love. So that's the solution to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's quite a solution. We'll get to that. We'll start working on that right away. All right. Tom, what do you think? What do you think? Why do you think people, there's so much of these beautiful gifts out there. Why do you think not more people are just running for it?
Well, that's, it's a very powerful question, and one I've recently, heard some discussions about. I've been drawn to, before we found, in the process of searching for truth and seeking, I think, seeking God in that truth. What is God? What does that really mean? Yogananda said something in some of the studies I read of his. He says, very few will seek God, and those who seek God, very few will find him. And I was pondering this, like, why don't we have this? And it goes back to what Heather was saying. You got to develop the will to want to look, because otherwise we're caught up in the material world and we're deceived by our physical senses, and so it's why aren't people looking? They're deceived. They're kind of in darkness. They don't do it until maybe some suffering, till maybe some tragedy. Then they have to turn inward. And it's sad that we have to wait for that. And I won't take long here, but I remember one time there was a hurricane that passed through Florida. I think it was Wilma or something, and we lost power in our neighborhood for, about 10 days. Well, I never seen us. We all came together as a community. Mm-hmm. In those 10 days, I got to meet more of my neighbors. We shared food with each other. We did all these amazing things. And because we had a need. There was a need, unfortunately, a tragic need. And as the lights came back on, unfortunately, people went back into their little bubbles, and we lost that unification, that thing that brought us together. But I see in the Baha'i faith that people do come together and move, and there's this action to that. So there's a nice, beautiful nature of community that I see there that isn't forced. It's naturally gravitating to. So I don't know. I pray and I hope that the people of the world will start seeking without the need for tragedy. But how to get people to develop their will, that's, I guess, the big question. How do you get someone to really want to seek? And I'd love to hear more about that.
Thank you. And actually, I remember that hurricane, because that's exactly what happened in our area in Hollywood. And it was great. It was amazing to see how everyone was working together and supporting each other. And the minute the lights came on, exactly what you said, it was like little squirrels running back to their little huts, And I don't know if a squirrel is the right example there, but definitely everybody
maybe running
scattered.
Back to their Netflix or to their
Yes.
whatever else they could bury their mind in and escape the world for a moment.
Exactly. So, Sam, what do you think? What do you think is the why more people don't run to this? Oh, I don't hear you guys.
I believe it's when you study the story of Adam and Eve, where they take the bite of the apple, it's the embodiment of this that the apple is embodiment of the material world. That once we take a bite of this material world, we forget our spiritual reality or our spiritual identity. And we become so attracted to this that we totally forget. And this is, I mean, that's the spiritual meaning of that story. And unfortunately, a lot of people take the story as like a literal story of Adam and Eve as like a first man and woman on this planet. And they actually find it in contradiction with a lot of things in science. And then the whole idea of the religion get lost. I think it's a lot of it has to do because religion has been misrepresented because a lot of literal interpretation of the stories, of the writings, of the literatures of the religion. And we have to realize that the man 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago, even up to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, education was not accessible to many people. Majority of the people of the world were uneducated or they couldn't read and write. So 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, if you wanted to create a community and you wanted to give them knowledge to guide them, how would you do that if you were God and if you wanted to do it through your teachers, through your messengers, or through your thing? It's basically it is by creating those the social laws as far as like going to the church or to synagogue and to this mosque, and where the priest or the rabbi would talk about the stories of the Bible and the conclusion that would come from those stories. So then the stories could be memorized and then could be given from generation to generation to generation. These stories could be retold and retold and retold, and the conclusion could be drawn. And so I think in a lot of ways, a lot of as time evolved and man has advanced and changed, and the man's perspective changed, and it's like you could say that humanity basically went from a childhood, stage of childhood to a stage of maturity and adolescence, and then basically would not buy into those stories anymore. As you could see that. I mean, you could talk to a 3-year-old, 4-year-old and give them a story, and you cannot sell the same story to that 3-year-old that later on becomes 16, 17, or 18 years old, is to start challenging you on that story. And I think a part of the religion that has failed, or humanity failed, is that to understand the inner meaning, the spiritual meaning of the religious literature, and a lot of the literal translation or interpretation has taken humanity, I call it, astray. It took them off the road, and so the religion has lost its meaning, and a lot of basically the materialism has taken the place of religion in today's society or in today's world of humanity, and that's where we're finding a lot of issues, a lot of problems. But if you know, and you can actually see that in the fact that we have a rise in fundamentalism in a lot of religions. It's because they say, oh, the reason we don't have this ideal or the ideal situation is because we don't do exactly as it says in the book. So they're trying to create a group that goes back and do exactly as it says in the group, which means like 2,000 years ago and 1,500 years ago, which makes it impossible to function in today's world based on the laws of 2,000 years ago. And they don't realize that the religious truths or religious teachings are relative. They're not absolute, because as time goes and as man develops more capacities, the perspectives of man changes. And so then that's why God sends new messengers And that's what the progressive revelation is about. So man can learn about the spiritual truths, and based on the capacity that it develops. The simple example of it, if I could make an analogy, is like a child that goes to the school and learns about arithmetic and fractions and multiplication and division, and then it progresses and goes until he learns algebra, calculus, and on to the highest level of mathematics. Depends on how much they want to pursue. And the fact is that the first grade teacher teaching them about addition and subtraction, that doesn't mean the teacher doesn't know algebra. Teacher knows algebra, but he knows that he cannot teach. These children don't have the capacities yet to understand algebra. So it saves it for later on in later classes in future. So it's the same thing is with religion. God has revealed itself in stages based on how mature we have been or have become as a human race or as a human. And based on that, he has revealed his knowledge to us. And then that's why it makes the religious truth is like as a function of space and time, based on where and when certain laws or social laws and things were given to help uplift those people. And that doesn't mean that the same law and social law can be applied 2,000 years later in another time and place. And that's what makes it relative.
Awesome.
But in the essence, is still it's cumulative. Means the day that the teacher, first grade teacher, teaches you 1 + 1 is equal to 2, you go get your PhD in mathematics in the highest level. The professor comes to the class, doesn't tell you, well, whatever Mrs. Brown taught you in the first class, 1 + 1 is equal to 2. She was wrong. Let me start over. You never see that. You see that still the PhD in the mathematics is on the foundation of the first grade teachings of 1 + 1 is equal to 2.
Okay. Amazing. You guys are like giving us so much to unpack, but unfortunately we can't do it today. But okay, so in the caution of time, so I'm going to make this disclaimer. If something happens with the recording, just come back to the same link, if you can, or we'll just, hopefully nothing will happen. But if it does, we'll try to figure it out. But anyway, Rabbi, if you can basically take us home, meaning if you can be very concise with your answer about this why, right? Why people aren't running for this kind of information, in like 5 minutes or less, and then we'll close it up.
Yeah, when I went to rabbinical school in New York many years ago, our teacher who taught us how to give a good sermon explained to us that when you give a sermon in a temple, in a synagogue, so be very careful. Don't hit them with the greater wisdom of Kabbalah and Talmud and Bible, because most people, sadly, choose to take the easier path in life than big ideas, lofty concepts. They think about their dinner and about their TV show and about the card game. So you have to talk to people. They said, I know you guys are learning here all this, books of wisdom and religions and such. But you want to communicate with the people, think of them as they are maybe teenagers, not people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, because they may be grandparents, but they still operate on a level that is not connected to what you're learning here. So you have to find a common denominator so you can reach them. At the time, I remember I was very taken aback by what the teacher said, because, we're here to teach them wisdom, and we want to share all the things we're learning here. Now that I'm older, I understand exactly what he meant, because it's true, sad truth. People say, don't confuse me with the facts. Don't force me to strain my brain. you know, I have to go to work and it's not easy to make a living and support my family. And I need to, I can't, they think of spirituality and of the place of worship as a place where they're going to make them feel good. It's a feel good place. God loves you, you know, he's the great father up above, etc. So to make a long story short, I don't mean to sound, superior or no, that's nonsense. No, but the point is that this is a common human tendency, you know. They don't want to. I have a wonderful circle of friends here in the Fort Lauderdale area, different people that I enjoy. But there are very few of them. They're all intelligent people, all, you know, well-educated people. But there's only a very few within that circle of friends that each time I sit down, I learn something new or I expand my horizons. Most of the time, it's what did you have for dinner? What movie did you see? And they're good people, intelligent people. They're successful people. Nothing wrong with them. But, you know, they don't get into these things. And one has to accept it. And I'm a writer, I write books, and I have to accept the fact that small number of my readers will really get into the thick of my what I'm trying to say in my book. And most of them are looking for the surface, for the veneer, not for the substance. And that's the way we are, we, the human race. And we have to accept it and deal with it as best we can, because life is a school of hard knocks. And then that's how it operates. And that's it. And that is why the Baha'i is only a few millions, the Jews are only a few millions, the true Catholics are only a few millions, not the hundreds of millions. They're not true Catholics. They think they are, but they're not. I can tell you this on authority. Talk to any priest or to any minister, they'll tell you the same thing. Because that's we, the clergy, know that. We experience it and we live with it. That's the human condition, you know. We are all, you know, very deep thinking people in different ways, all five of us. And we want everybody to be the same way. Not possible. If it were possible, we would need emotional intelligence because everybody would understand. No, we need it very badly. And that is my take on it.
Thank you. Wow, what a conversation. Do you guys feel amazing? Yes, you guys can come on and give your one, give me one, just one word, and I think we'll be okay with time. Give me one word that you feel about this conversation that we just had. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to say hi.
Enlightened.
I'm going to say, oh, go ahead, Heather.
Enlightened.
Beautiful. I was going to say lighter and brighter.
I would say hopeful, because if people like yourselves in this world, I'm hopeful.
Delighted.
Nice. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving your time, because you're very busy people. And, you know, I appreciate you so much. And I hope that this information does reach, and I know it will, actually. I know it will reach the people that it's meant to. And I will make sure that I share everybody's information. Like if Rabbi, you want me to share some information about your books and all that, and we can talk about that after offline. But again, I just want to wish everyone continuous growth and energy and enlightenment. And I'm going to finish this out with our famous quote. Tom, you want to do the quotes with me?
Yes.
All right, you go first.
We learn by doing, and when we know better, we do better, and we reveal to heal.
And when you know and understand yourself, the world will know and understand you too. And remember, what's the best
that
can happen? Okay, guys. Thank you again, everyone, so much. Wishing you an amazing evening. Take care, everybody.
And thank you for organizing this.
Thank you.